I'm Aleks.
And I'm Rob.
I'm from Novi Sad, Serbia.
And I'm from New York. Aleks and I started dating after meeting on a German cruise ship where we were entertainers.
And now we are in a long-distance relationship.
Until we can be together again, we decided to start a podcast.
We may come from different backgrounds, but that's exactly what keeps the conversation going for hours.
We can't wait for you to listen to this episode.
So sit back and enjoy it.
Because we have a lot to talk about.
Hello everybody. In this episode, we are excited to welcome Ivana, also called Moje Blu. Ivana is a linguist who is fluent in many languages, including German, Spanish, English, and of course her mother tongue, Serbian. As the co-host of popular podcast Može, Kafa, and a long-time YouTuber, Ivana shares tips on learning the Serbian language across a range of platforms. So Ivana, welcome.
Thank you. Wow, an introduction. This is my first introduction. This is so cool. Thanks, everyone. Zdravo svima.
Oh, yeah. So I guess we can start you're currently living in Germany.
Yes.
So why are you in Germany and what are you doing in Germany?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I have a YouTube channel in Serbian language and I'm in Germany, right? I came here because I got a job as a PhD student. Before that, I was in Austria doing my master's, so I wanted to continue with my PhD, but in Serbia it was kind of difficult to find it. I was trying to apply everywhere. I didn't really care where I was. And it turned out to be Germany. So I was like, okay, it's a good transition because, from Austria, German-speaking country, went to Germany. And now I'm basically jobless because I finished with my PhD. So that's good. I'm not a sad jobless person. But I'm trying to find a job and currently I'm here. Yep.
Mm. So you are a Dr. Ivana.
Yes, officially.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a process. I mean... you basically defend your thesis and then after that you have to publish it. Only when you publish it are you a doctor. Before that, you're doctor designated. And I've submitted it. I'm in the process of publishing it, so probably in like a week or two I'm going to be a doctor. But for now, I'm doctor designated Ivana. Yeah.
So doctor-ish Ivana.
Yeah.
So how long was that, the process of you're studying in Germany, for how long?
Officially, it was supposed to be 3 years, and it was, I think it was 3 years and a half. But a PhD is usually up to 6 years. So I really had to rush everything. And then, I defended it at a 4-year mark, basically, because again, it's a process. You submit it, then you wait for everyone to read it, set a date. It's a really long process. And so it was all in all, let's say 4 years, 3 to 4 years.
And this was on English linguistics?
Yeah, it's kind of, I had to include English because that's kind of my background. But it's called psycholinguistics, which is basically linguistics. I'm asking linguistic questions, but I'm using more statistics, so more the psychological side and also real-time machines. So the eye tracker and stuff. So it's kind of a bit more real-time online processing of a language, but essentially I'm asking the same questions as any linguist is asking. And English had to be included, so that was the language that is being acquired. And the first languages that I tested were German, Croatian, however you want to call it, and Spanish. So I dealt with various languages. So I know a bit of linguistics from many languages, but mostly focusing on English.
So do you mind just listing all of the languages that you've even just dabbled in? Maybe you could say which ones you're fluent, but also which ones you're learning or any of that, because from what I've seen, I think you know even more than what we listed in your introduction.
I used to pride myself. I'm I'm learning so many languages. And then you go to Europe and then it's everyone knows so many languages. And then they say, I know a bit. And then they just speak, fluently.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
So jealous.
I know. I was why wasn't I bicultural, like bilingual, you know, that my parents would speak different languages. It would be so easy to learn a language. No, it was, I mean, Serbian, my native language, and then English, because I studied it, and he probably knows, you know, we don't have dubbed series or movies. It's all with subtitles. You pick it up. Spanish, which is because of soap operas. I know it's funny, but it is like that. And then
I have a friend who's mentioned that before, who's Serbian. He said the same thing.
Exactly.
He knows. Yeah.
And you probably know a bit of Spanish too, right, Aleks?
Yeah, I didn't watch like the soap operas, but you probably also remember I watched Un Paso Adelante.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of picked a lot from that TV series at the time, but yeah, kind of. I know. I think like, I'm sorry like to cut you off, but my point is for the Spanish, I don't have anywhere to use it. But I think for like mediocre speak, just for everyday, just speaking and listening, I think I can like 5-6 months I can like learn it. Yeah. So continue. Sorry.
I think because it was mostly passive language, right? So you have that passive knowledge, and you're like, I know Spanish, but because you've never used it, it's kind of difficult for you to even say something. And that was the thing with me. And I was very lucky to meet some friends from Spain. It was like continuously with one. I was talking with one friend. She's from Spain, and she just didn't know English that well or German or anything. So I just started speaking in Spanish. And then German, because I had to learn it. I'm not like really fluent in Spanish and German, just so you know. I can get by, but it's not like I can speak it as English or Serbian. And then because, again, of series and many things, I can read and understand Portuguese and Italian. Actually, sometimes I read some books in these languages because, I don't know, when it's written, it's really easy. And they have to be really like easy books. You know, not like classics or anything like that. So, yeah. But these are all the languages. French, I don't know. Even though it's a Romance language, I'm like, I mean, it's funny because I can understand Spanish and Italian and Portuguese, but French, just like,
that's a difficult language.
No.
Yeah.
It does seem like, from what, I mean, I don't speak French, but from what I know from my little German is there are some combinations of, there's influence in French. Back and forth with German and French.
Yeah. You know German?
Yeah, so I was going to mention this to you.
Cool.
So Ivana has a YouTube channel, and I had actually seen her videos way before we got in contact with each other when I was trying to learn a little bit of Serbian. And as I've been watching some more of your videos, you often will be talking about German and Serbian, and it has helped me with understanding just the basic grammar so much more in both languages. But I am an A2.
Okay.
So I'm currently still taking classes.
Okay.
Once a week.
Only once a week. So just being at his house and like seeing his family and them speaking Serbian, I can only imagine if I was in Germany while I'm taking these classes, because I know, I mean, even when we were on the ship, there were times where I was really and I came on that ship not knowing. I didn't even know how to say, like, where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
So now I'm just confusing myself with both languages because I'm learning both at the same time. But your videos are very helpful.
Oh, thank you. So
they really are.
What was the video that you actually watched? What was it?
It was the first Serbian 101 video that was just like the basic, like the Može.
Okay.
That's all you need to learn. And I remember when I arrived, I was like, I hear all I have to know is Može.
Exactly. Oh, I have a question for Aleks, actually. Can I ask?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yes. So as you already know, I'm not a Serbian linguist. I know everyone gets really disappointed when I say that, but I'm not. So I'm kind of learning about my language right now. But there's this one thing that I cannot figure out how to explain, which is the difference between važi and može. Do you, like, I know that it's not the same, and I was trying to use it in certain contexts, and I'm like, but sometimes you can use both. But then here you're asking for permission, but are you like, I don't know. If you can think about it, and if you don't have the answer, that's fine.
Važi would be like sure. but Može would be, for me, would be more of like deal.
But you see, it's like such a tiny difference.
Yeah,
you know what I
it
mean?
is.
Because I don't even know how to translate Može, because it can be translated in many different ways in different situations. So it's like, if you say sure, okay, right, deal, like it's all the same, right? But like it's not. Sometimes it's not.
That's how I think I explained to her about Može through the examples.
Yeah.
So Germans use genau for everything. It's like more of a joke. For me, it's like genau, like a statement. They say something genau, but just like saying. But this.
Well, and that's, I mean, talk about a cultural difference. We were saying like so we had somebody on the show recently who is an American who was living in Germany just like I was, and she and I always would say, it's so funny, I say the word correct a lot when I got home. And I was like, why am I saying correct? But it was because so often in the German culture, you never ask a question. You say you say a statement with a question mark, and then the other person goes, genau.
And you transferred it. Yeah. I think I find it very funny when sometimes they will be like, I would ask them, okay, I don't know, what have you done today? What did you do last week or whatever? And they'd be like, they will tell me, and they were like, genau. It's as if kind of like, that was the truth, what I said. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but we would never stop at like, say it and like, yes. You know? It's like, you would never say that, but they use that. That's just so natural to them. And I'm like...
Also, what you asked me, like, for Serbian language, I also find it difficult sometimes. Sometimes Serbian language has like 5 different words for more or less the same thing, or like you can combination of like other words for the more or less, you can like have a variety. But sometimes for something you cannot really explain. So I told my friend at one point for something like blah blah blah, like a quirk, and he's like, quirk, what's that? I was like, that's a word. Yeah, you're just making that up, like in English, right? Like, quirk, how can I translate? I mean, there is a translation, I guess, but I don't know.
It's like a feeling, kind of, because quirky is like, it's such a colloquial term that it's hard to describe, which is, I do think, like, maybe for our audience, because we do have a lot of Americans that listen, to describe, how would you describe Može? Like, because you can use it when you're ordering something, or if you're asking for something, but you can also use it to confirm. So like, as
Može
you know,
coffee?
Moje kafa, Može.
Exactly.
You know, like that's the dialogue, and it's like logically to me, I go, okay, because it's easy, but really I'm very confused as to how that works.
I know, but that's why I'm saying that's why it's such a good word to know, because, you know, it's so useful. Instead of having all of this, like, can I please get a, you just like say Može, you know, whatever. And then, and I understand it's confusing, but good thing that you are in Serbia so that you can like pick it up very quickly and be like, oh now I get it. You're going to hear it a lot.
But I will say our lunch conversations with his parents are awesome, because it's really, his father speaks a little bit of German. So sometimes if he's trying to confirm something, he'll just say it in German, and I most likely will be able to figure that out. And then his mother only speaks Serbian, so it's so helpful to not get the help, to only have to rely on what she's saying in Serbian and context. So it's like the best of both worlds.
I think that he will be more comfortable talking with you in German if you were more fluent. And
I mean, I will say, even just from the summer, you know, he asked me like, what's my name in German? And just hearing a different accent than what I was used to, I was like, you know, like rewind, like, And I guess that leads perfectly into the next question, which is, for someone who's learning a language, especially in your case, you have so many languages that you're dabbling with at a time, how does one pick something up fast? Like, what would be your technique? / if you're learning 2 languages at once, how would you balance that?
You know,
2 big questions.
Yeah, they are big questions. I was thinking about that a lot, because I'm also testing it on me, right? And I think people want to, a formula. There is none. You're gonna have to like figure it out. I think I told this in some of my videos. Like, I think motivation is like a big one, because motivation in terms of, if this is gonna be useful to you, you're probably gonna be, it's gonna be probably more likely that you're gonna learn it. So it doesn't really matter that I want to learn Portuguese. I love Portuguese. I would love to learn it. I have no one to talk to. So even so what? You take like 1 hour a day and everything's great, but like when do you use it? You're just gonna forget it, you know?
Yes.
So I think that's the thing. Obviously, having someone to talk to would be the best thing. And really, I experienced this in Germany, you know, like starting my PhD, I should be at this level where I'm like, you know, I'm like a researcher, scientist. I'm like, should be so intelligent. And then I start speaking in German, and I speak like a kid. And then I always thought, like, why do people even want to talk to me in German? You know, they're really happy that I want to speak in German, but they're like, how can you have like a deep conversation? So that really frustrated me. But honestly, without that context where you can actually use the language, I think that's like, it's harder. I think it's really harder. So if you're in the country, not only if you're in the country, if you're surrounded by people, like currently I'm not using German that much because I am, you know, in an apartment with my boyfriend. He doesn't speak German that well. But before, I was in a shared flat and they were all Germans. So I had to speak, right? So that really helped me out. And in terms of like what is the best technique to learn a language, I think it would be mix it, like mix inputs, mix ways of learning, figure out what fits you best. But I think don't stick to one way. Like I love reading books, and it's great, but that's not like, I have to sometimes sit down and learn the rule, you know, and I love watching or like watching movies, listening to something, doing different types of exercises, you know, trying like to memorize, like, because you're dealing with like grammar and vocabulary, grammar and exceptions. And there are certain things that you're just going to have to learn, like rote learn, you know, there's no logic. So, and even if you learn a grammar rule, that's at least what I experienced, you cannot use it automatic. It's going to take some months for you to be, okay, I got it. I don't even have to think about it. If not years, you know, it depends. Yeah. So sometimes I do a course and I'm like, okay, now I need 1 semester to just practice it. And I don't do like, you know, intensive courses, because it just like, I get frustrated because I'm like, oh, I'm not at the level. Why can't I figure this out? Because you're not there yet. Like your brain needs to process it, you know? So, and I mean, even with English, I make mistakes every day. It's just a learning process. Come on. Like even in Serbian, I make mistakes every day. So it just, I think if you take languages, this is a dynamic thing. It's going to change. It's never going to be 100% the same. You're going to forget certain things. You're going to remember. You're going to learn a bit. You're going to forget. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Before we get back to the episode, we have something important to share with you.
As you all know by now, this podcast was started as a way for Aleks and I to connect while we are apart.
Little did we know how much the podcast would grow into something new.
In order to increase the quality of our content, it takes a great deal of time, attention, and hard work.
That's where you come in.
If you want to support us, we have set up a way for you to do just that.
Go to anchor.fm/ we have a lot to talk about, and click on support.
You will then have the option to contribute however much you would like to in order to support us and this podcast.
We already have a few supporters and are so thankful for your contribution.
Now, let's get back to the episode.
What was the second question?
I think you kind of answered it, but it was basically, if you're learning 2 languages at once, you know, for you like reading, so maybe you're reading in 2 different languages. How do you differentiate?
Yeah, I think if it's useful, like there's no way, like there's no, it's not difficult for you to separate languages. I think, but in the beginning stages, I would say it's quite difficult, especially if the languages are quite similar. I had this issue with Italian and Spanish because I had 2 years. So my whole childhood was Spanish, you know, yo soy tu madre, whatever. And then I started my bachelor studies and I had 2 years of Italian. Mind you, I've never heard Italian. Like I heard a song or two, but I never watched an Italian movie, series or anything. I just didn't have any input. And I'm like, okay, I'm learning this. And what would happen, I would start speaking, I would say yo instead of io, and I'll be like, just mixing a soy, no, whatever. And I just forgot Spanish. Because the reason for that is because, first of all, I did not learn Spanish, sat down and learned it. I just picked it up. So the grammar did not have any structure. Nothing was holding it. It was just kind of like floating over there. And that's how I see it, at least. It didn't have like a good basis. So I just kind of forgot about it. And I could still understand. I couldn't say anything. And then I started learning Italian, and then 2 years of that. And then after that, I started learning Spanish again. And then it started to make sense. I'm like, this is this tense, and this is that, and this is what you say. Okay, cool. And then what I started doing, I started learning Italian next to Spanish. Because I'm like, if I start figuring both of them out, the grammar and everything, like it's so much easier for me to separate them if I know the grammar of both, for example. And what I started doing, because that was when I was in Austria, I was a bit extreme. I was learning like Italian, Spanish, German, and obviously English I knew. And I would sit down and I would learn German. I would always translate it to English. And then Spanish, I would always find an equivalent in Italian. So I would not like translate the word from Spanish to English or Serbian, but I would find like the equivalent in like Italian, because I'm like, okay, that's going to make it easier for me to separate them. Because if I know like the word in both languages, then it's clear. Or like the rule,
Yeah.
But I think mostly it's like taking time. You have to take time for these languages. You cannot do one class a week and then, that's it. You kind of have to keep it somehow. You don't have to sit down and study for like 1 hour, but like do something with the language almost every day. That's what worked for me.
Found it useful for me with English back in the day is like reading books.
Yeah,
I still do, but just saying, like for me personally, maybe it's not for everybody, but
yeah.
I find when I'm reading, it's like so easy, and I'm like, I'm fluent in this language,
Yes.
And then I go to speak with my German teacher, and I'm like, dobro, gonna,
okay.
Like I kind of mix up languages, or I just forget the grammar, like if I was writing it down, the grammar would be there because it's a different part of your brain that you're activating. And then, you start speaking and you're like, as you said, you were like really convinced that you had everything you needed for German, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god,
I speak
exactly.
like a kid.
Yeah, I speak like a child.
But I think everyone's thinking like learning language is it's a linear thing. It's not. And for like the longest time you don't see any results. You're like frustrated or whatever, and then all of a sudden people started telling me, oh, your German is amazing, like your Spanish is amazing. And I'm like, man, it took me 1 to 2 years of constantly speaking it to be like, finally I see some like concrete results. Like before that, you don't see it on a day-to-day basis. And for me, it's so natural. I know that I'm not just going to be like, okay, learning German, just like straight up, it's just going to be like, sometimes I'm not going to be it's not going to be my day. Sometimes I'm not going to learn that much. It's going to be slower or not. And I take it as it is. For me, it's so normal, but people just get really discouraged, which is a bit sad because any progress is, but I just believe that life is just like lots of fluctuations. That's just what it is.
So what led you like into the languages in the first place, I guess?
I was good in my school, I was good at maths and English. So I was like, oh, okay, what can I do? I had like English classes, actually, private classes from time to time. And she was like, Ivana is really good at speaking. Like, I have a sister. She's like, yeah, your sister, like her sister too, but Ivana is better, So mom was like, oh, okay, Then after a certain point, when I was supposed to decide what I was like, at least in high school, what I was going to do. I was like, for me, it was like clear. It was like English, of course. I loved maths, but it was like, English was so much fun. Like I could listen to songs and talk to people and whatever. It was a lot about the culture too. And I was just curious to like meet people, learn about new cultures and so on. But at that point, everyone was like, yeah, why English or whatever. And I said, I'm going to go to the grammar school. It was like a social sciences. So mostly I was focusing on languages. I'm like, I'm going to pursue that. And after that, I was like, it was clear as day, I'm going to study English. But actually, everyone at that point started saying English. Everyone knows English. Don't learn English. Learn some other language. Some like Arabic, something like, something that's, there's like a big population or whatever. I was like, but I don't care. Like I want to study English. So my mom ended up discouraging me, and she said, why don't you just try for like a teaching university? And so you can be a teacher, which is he knows it like in kind of like 8-year primary school, so to speak, something, actually 4-year primary school to teach everything, right? But then you can give classes, English classes on the side. And I was like, okay, maybe like I can do that. If I can do English, then it's okay. My mom was like, just be realistic, like just get a job in a school, just, we can find you maybe something like that. I'm like, okay, fine. And I actually did the exam. And I was like, in Belgrade, I was like, I don't want to go there. And I was like I think I was like underneath the line, which was for basically like for the university to give me a scholarship, which is like na budžetu, right? So I didn't get in. I mean, I got into the university, but I would have to self-finance. And I said, Mom, I don't want to pay for that. I really want to try. There's this one private university in Novi Sad. Private universities in Serbia they're not like private universities. Like, they're like, oh my God, you studied at a private university?
Yeah, they're sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. So we found this one that was, how do you say accreditovana? Like, I don't know how you
accredited.
Yeah, okay. And I was like, okay, good. Had some good reviews, whatever. I was like, let me try over there. And I just went over there and I said, if my parents, because I had to pay for it. I said, if my parents were going to pay so much money that I might as well do a really good job at learning about languages and about English and whatever. And from then on, I just started like being like, I want to learn more, and just left Serbia and learn more about other cultures and languages.
That's great. So did you travel a lot? Like in past, I don't know, 5-10 years.
The funny thing is that I was really shy when I was younger, and I was so shy that my mom was like, this one is gonna stay in Zrenjanin. This is my hometown. She's not gonna leave it. She's never gonna go anywhere. And even studying in Novi Sad was like, oh my God, a shock, like. Oh
yeah, big city.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh my God, big city. How am I gonna figure it? I mean, looking at it from now, it's like, it's funny, but basically I was like, but everyone, like all my friends were there. I'm like, I want to go there, and that kind of freed me. I don't know how to say, and I'm like, I want to do my master's somewhere else. And I was like, really? You? And I'm like, yeah, I think. And then I started also traveling a lot. I started really getting interested in that, and traveling alone too. I love that as well. Traveling with someone else is amazing, but traveling alone is also amazing. It's a different experience. And like then I started traveling as much as I could.
Also, I would not include Serbs into the traveling bunch. Generally speaking, when you're like even nowadays when it's easier with the. But we don't. It's easier from 2010 up until now. But even that, like 10 days Greece, that's it. Same place, 30 years, that's it. And like she said, also parents are telling her, we're gonna find you a school and you're gonna work there for 50 years. You're gonna die, and that's it. You don't go anywhere. That's the basic narrative, which I never found myself being a part of that. And when I had the opportunity to travel, I did travel, but. As you said, also a lot of problems come with like not having a money, and then I have friends who have money, but they don't have friends who have money, so they cannot go with anybody, and so on and so forth. So it's not that easy.
No, and I'm always really careful as to how I'm speaking about Serbia, because I have a very specific experience. I'm from the north. I'm from this little town. Like my friends are, people that I chose, so they obviously share some values and views and so on. So I get a lot of like backlash on YouTube regarding.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So I always say, okay, this is my experience. So I don't really I know certain things that I don't like about Serbia. I know certain things that I do like. So my approach is I don't want to be angry at everyone. I just want to pick and choose things that I like, mentalities, approaches, views from whichever culture I feel I identify with. So there's certain things that I love about Serbia, but I always felt I share some values, but not everything, that type of thing. I don't want to say that traveling is everything. It's not everything in life, but I do tend to travel a bit more than some other people maybe. But for example, my sister, she's she's married now, she has a kid, and she lives in my hometown, and she's perfectly happy. She does not aspire. Yeah. She can't travel. She can't afford herself. She's working, her husband too. She's no, doesn't bring me joy. I just want to renovate my house and have a good place to live in, and you have my community over there, and that's it. And I'm fair enough.
Yeah.
So
with that, we just want to thank you so much for being on our little show. And for reaching out and
talking about languages.
Talking about languages today. And culture as well. And travel. A lot of topics.
Thank you. I hope I answered all of the questions. I don't know if this is an issue with you guys, but whenever I start doing filming an episode, I'm the way I envision it is I have my coffee next to me, I'm sitting down, sipping, and I'm having a coffee chit chat, and I just go on and on and on, and I'm man, we have to edit this shit. Sorry, because it's we first said 20 minutes and then ended up being 30 minutes, and I'm okay, sure, it has to be a bit shorter because we're dealing with linguistic topics. So, and I'm I don't know how many people's gonna want to hear that, but it's just so, I don't know, it's an enjoyment to to talk and chit chat, and I always say I could talk a lot more and hang out with you a bit more.
I truly believe everyone who is interested in Serbia or language should really check out your YouTube channel, because you do really great content. In addition to the YouTube, also everyone should listen to Moje kafa, and they might even hear a familiar voice.
Exactly.
See what happens.
Stay tuned. Thank you again. This is my first time being a guest and being introduced as I was introduced. So it was a really nice experience.
No problem. We loved having you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Have a Lot to Talk About. We have new episodes coming out every Monday on most podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us, as well as give us a follow on Instagram at We Have a Lot to Talk About Podcast. Talk to you next time.